Dreams. We all have them. Some are better than others. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Yeah, dreams. I did a show not too long ago about me eating late. And when I ate late, I had some rather odd dreams. And of course, the kind of person that I am need to experiment to find out whether or not that the fact that I ate late is what generated these very strange and very lucid dreams. Meaning, well, I am aware of the fact that I'm in a dream while the dream is going on, besides the fact that the dream is very strange. So the combination of things just makes it very, very odd. And of course, like I said, I needed to know whether or not I could recreate that situation. And well, turns out that it works very, very, very well. I don't know why, I don't know how. All I know is that if I eat, personally, me, after 8 o'clock at night, I'm guaranteed to have a strange dream that I'm going to realize is a dream the second it starts. It's just the way it works. And as a result of that, I've got like, I'm going to assume enough material to finish this episode, and then perhaps maybe even a third one, and maybe even more than that, depending on how good I can sort of explain these dreams as I'm going on about them. It's just the weirdest part of the idea is, like I said, I eat after 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden, bam, here we go. We're in this strange universe. And anything can happen. Who knows what it could be? I mean, last time, and I still get a kick out of it, the fact that the strangest dream that I had from the first episode was the fact that I saw these strange Slim Jim people. Yeah, they're like 6 feet tall, and we were fighting, and then after that, we started eating. But the only thing that they could eat was that the only thing they wanted to eat was these hot dogs that had to be almost burnt, but not quite. And it was weird because they didn't have mouths. So we're talking about stuff like that, and even just people that I didn't notice in the dreams. It's odd. The whole thing is very, very odd. And I wonder if you out there actually have had odd dreams after you ate late, because this is what triggered them for me. And then make it even more interesting, like I said, lucidity of these dreams, the fact that I know that I'm in a dream when it's happening, is just even stranger. And that is probably a part of the element of why the dreams are strange to begin with. I don't know. I'm going to talk to you about a few of those dreams when we get to the main event, which is coming up now. I'm going to ring the bell and we're going to start talking about these very strange dreams. Okay, main event time. Where do we begin? This is literally July 19th as I record this episode, and it's going to come out on, well, not the date that I originally intended, which is even more interesting about this, because this episode was originally supposed to come out on the 18th of July. However, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to change the day when I was going to do it because I had a better feeling about doing the Sitting on the Porch episode, which was supposed to come out on the 25th is when the Sit on the Porch episode was supposed to come out. July 25th, 2016. But, rather 26th. But I changed up my mind sometime during the week and decided that, well, I'll use the Strange Dreams episode for the 25th, and I'm going to go with the 18th of July, 2026 for the Sitting on the Porch episode in July. So now here we are. About to talk about some strange dreams. Let's see. Where did we put it at? How in the world did I lose the notes for that? Now, there are many shows that I write very small notes for. Like every show is pretty much built on me writing very, very small notes. And with these dreams, I have to make sure to write down notes quickly so that I don't forget what the dream was. So typically, it's like people say sometimes if you're going to try to remember your dreams, what you want to do is when you get up in the morning, right before you do anything else, you need to grab a pen or paper or something and to write it down. And for these dreams, that's exactly what I've done. The first dream that I got for you involved a man, uh, and he had a track phone. You know, those track phones that you have to add minutes to. And it ran out of minutes. Totally ran out of minutes. But for some weird reason, and this is what made the dream strange, because of course I noticed that I was in a dream, and this guy was walking around. He's asking me, I don't have any minutes on my phone, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, okay, I don't know who you are, and I know that you're not real, but you're looking for minutes for your track phone, and I'm like, all right, let me think about this. I'm in a dream. Do I have any minutes in my pocket? No, I don't. But what I did tell the guy was, well, hey, this is what I can do for you. I can charge your phone. And he's like, oh, okay, great. That's perfect. Meanwhile, we were both like, okay, so we just were just walking around, which is the strange part, just in downtown Center City, Philadelphia. And I told him that I could charge his phone. Of course, I'm looking around all over the place for an outlet because I happen to have a charger which, conveniently enough, plugs into his phone. Now, the weird part about it is I looked at his phone after he handed it to me, and his phone had 75% power, which means he got plenty of power and it's not going to be the issue. But what he really needed was minutes for his phone. But the solution that I came up with was to charge it. And that's the thing that made it very weird because charging it's not going to matter if it doesn't have any minutes that you can add to it, so he's not going to be able to use it. It's just going to have full power. And so we walked around, and then I go to charge his phone. And this is the weird part. Once I plugged in the charger to charge his phone, even though he wanted to actually get minutes for his phone, I plug it in, and it's strange because we're just sitting on the sidewalk on some indescript road in downtown Center City, Philadelphia, which I know it's Center City because I walked past City Hall like twice trying to find a charger outlet for him. And once we did, we sat down on the ground and I plugged in the phone. And once I plugged in the phone, his phone, instead of actually gaining power, it was like the charger took what power he had in his phone and it just started going down. Like I said, it was at 75, and then all of a sudden it started going down to 60, 50, 48. And all of a sudden it was 12, and then there was no power left in the phone whatsoever. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And the guy was like, hey, this is fine. It's okay. Thank you. And he unplugged the phone and he walked away. Now, that dream was obviously strange because, for one, I literally didn't help the man in any way. In fact, I made his situation worse. Because not only could he didn't have any minutes to actually be able to use the phone for calls or anything, but now he literally doesn't have any power left in his phone. And that was just strange. Just very, very strange. Why that happened. It was really, 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 really strange. Now, speaking of strange, here comes a fun one, but it's again very, very strange. I was going to sleep and I wake up in my dream and I'm in a locker room. But things just don't quite feel right, even though I've been in locker rooms for a long time, playing sports in high school and in college, and then um, going to the gym in recent years. And comfortable in a locker room, it makes sense. But there was something that just wasn't quite right. Just felt a little weird. But it was okay. But I knew that it wasn't. Something was not quite right. And so I get up and I'm looking at what I'm wearing, and all of a sudden I'm wearing wrestling trunks. And I'm starting to tape my wrists. And I don't even know where I got the tape from, but it was black tape, which was pretty cool. I like black tape, and I'm like, alright. Okay. Apparently, I'm going to be doing some sort of wrestling or fighting. I don't know which. And then I hear in the background Demolition, my favorite tag team of all time, Axe and Smash, Billy and Barry Darso. They were back 30 years ago, 40 years. They were young and strong and as powerful as they ever were, as the greatest tag team of all time. And I hear their music play, and they tap me on the shoulder and say, "Come on, kid, let's go." And I'm like, "Okay, this is great." So then I go out, and I'm walking to the ring with Demolition. And it's like, "Oh, this is awesome. This is just the coolest thing." We get to the ring, and it was like the old school WWE from the WWF days in the late 80s, where they had the red, white, and blue ropes. And we get into the ring, Demolition is there, and I realize something. This isn't even real people. This is like a video game. I'm in a video game wrestling with my favorite tag team of all time, and this is going to be very strange because not it wasn't like it was a real like actual me and them, but it was they were a video game from like the actual game footage that I've seen from the new WWE 2K26, that Demolition. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in a video game. And then the announcer calls for our opponents, and coming to the ring is one of my other favorites, old school wrestlers. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff is one of our opponents. And he got to the ring, and there was some unknown character that was with him. It wasn't anybody real, just sort of like somebody made him. And he's now Mr. Wonderful's tag team partner. And it's a handicap match. Me and Demolition versus Mr. Wonderful and this unknown guy. And we're having this video game match. We're actually in the video game and we're fighting. And we're doing some pretty good stuff. I know at one point, I throw Mr. Wonderful outside the ring, and he lands on the ground. And he looks up at me and he says, "Come on, come on, jump out, jump out." And so, on his cue, I launched myself over the top rope, and he caught me, and we went down. And when he went down, he was like, "Ah, that was great. That was good." Now, mind you, this isn't real pro wrestling. This is a video game. And yet he's still reacting to me as if we're actually real. And that's what makes this so very, very strange. Meanwhile, inside the ring, Demolition is double teaming that unknown guy, and they go and they deliver their Demolition Decapitator, which was their finisher. Smash holds the guy on his knee, and Axe comes from the second rope with an elbow. And that would be the end of the match, but for some reason, me and Mr. Wonderful were still outside, and he's like, "Oh no, that's not the finish. That's not the finish. That's not the end of the match." And after that guy's just laying there, Mr. Wonderful goes into the ring and he starts attacking Axe. Meanwhile, Smash says, "Come help me." And like I said, again, to make sure you understand just how strange this is, these are video game characters, not the real, actual human beings. Video game characters. And Smash tells me to help him put up a table. And we start putting the table up, and then all of a sudden, there's like 3 or 4 tables, and they're just piling up, and I'm on top of these tables, putting up more and more tables. I must be standing on top of somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 tables. It's a lot of tables. It's pretty high. I could see that I'm up in the balcony area standing up on these tables. And out of nowhere, after Axe finishes working on Mr. Wonderful, he goes and throws the unknown mystery guy that we were fighting. He throws him onto the top of the tables. And like I said, it's like 30, at this point, it's like 30 to 40 tables. Because I'm really, really, really high up. Everything was small. And he just tosses the guy up, and he lands perfectly on the middle of the table. I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this is not going to go well." And so I pick the guy up, and Axe says, "Toss him down." And I just push him. And he falls off of these 45 or so tables, hits the ground. And I'm like, okay, so he's definitely finished. And then Axe says, "Come on, jump off." And I'm looking, and I'm like, "Jump off?" He goes, "Yeah, jump off." And after he said that, I just went blind faith with video game virtual Axe, and I jumped off these 45 tables, delivering a perfect Macho Man type elbow into this unknown character. And that's when I woke up. Now, think about the strangeness in that. There's a lot, as they say, to unpack with this. First of all, I'm in a video game. Let's start with that. And I'm recognizing that I'm in a video game. If that's not strange enough, the fact that I understand that I'm in this video game, and I'm working with my favorite tag team of all time in this video game, and our opponent, Mr. Wonderful, another all-time great, is communicating with me as if we are actually calling the match inside the ring like they do sometimes in real life, but this is a video game. And yet he's still communicating to me as if he's a real human being. Which is just so strange. And it was like, and I don't know what's worse. The fact that, as worse I should say, which is stranger, the fact that I was doing all this communicating with these guys in this match, or the fact that I understood that I was in a video game while doing it. That was just absolutely crazy. It really was just crazy. There's no other words that I could use to describe the fact that I'm in the middle of this video game match with my favorite tag team of all time, and it just, and I understand that I am in a dream and it is a video game, and I'm just gonna go along with it. A lot of fun. Very much a lot of fun. Let's see another one. Uh, oh yeah, this is weird. Probably one of the shorter ones that I had, but to describe this, I can actually set this up very well. Um, what do I want to talk about on this that is real and that is not real? Well, without giving away trade secrets, I can say that in the prison that I work for, there are 3 different groups, and each of these groups worked for each shift of the jail: 6 to 2, 2 to 10, 10 to 6. And we would rotate. so that two groups would be on and one group would be on days off. I'm not going to get into it any further because that would determine, that'd be too much information to know how the groups worked or what the groups were. So I'm not going to break down any of that. But know that there were three separate groups and two groups would work, one group would be off. And one specific group of my coworkers, actually, it's probably weaved in between all of them, but one group in particular can be categorized more so than the other ones as sneakerheads. And now that's something that I thought was, I didn't really know much about it. Because my whole life, I was never a person who was over the top about sneakers. My philosophy for pretty much most of my life is shoes have one purpose, and I would say it to people all the time, and I get funny looks, but to me, that's all it was. I would tell people that, yeah, shoes are only to do two things. They're to make sure that I don't get glass in my feet or step in poop. That's really what I thought about my shoes. I would get the cheapest shoes sometimes from what used to be Walmart, or rather, what used to be Kmart. Walmart, I'd buy boots, I'd buy the same ones all the time. When Payless was open, man, if I spent more than $30 on a pair of shoes, that would be eccentric. There was a point, however, I will say, to the credit, I will say that there was a point where, when it came to my sports shoes, I had a very specific type of a brand that I liked for my sports shoes. And like I said, I wrestled, I did track, and I played football. And it just so happens that Nike, when I first started wrestling, actually had a brand of wrestling shoe that they were coming out with at that time. Because usually the ASIC was the one that most people would use for wrestling shoes. But Nike, they brought out a pair of wrestling shoes, and well, I said, okay, I'll go with them. And I liked them because my football cleats, they were all Nikes, and my throwing shoes, my shot put and discus shoes, those were also Nikes. And then there was a point in time when I would buy boots, and they would be Nikes too. That was probably between, I don't know, when I graduated high school and I was in college, probably for like that 3 or 4 years. I would be, I would buy Nike boots. And then after that, I just said, why am I going to pay $100 for a pair of boots when I could get a pair for 30, wear them out for 2 years, get another pair. $30 for a pair of boots, throw them out, next way. That's what I used to do. So, and even now, like, I'm just still not a person who's over the top with sneakers. Although I will say that I did have a pair of British Knights when I was in my freshman year of high school, and that was the only pair of those that I had until a couple of years ago. I ended up getting my hands on 3 more pairs of British Knights. Now, before you say that you just said that you're not a sneakerhead, consider this. Those 3 pairs of British Knights I've had them for 3 years, and I probably wore each one of those pairs of sneakers. If you were to combine the time that I wore those sneakers, it would probably be 3 weeks. Because, first of all, British Knights are the kind of shoes that it seemed like they were gone, and then all of a sudden I found them. Just happenstance. Because there'd be times when every once in a while I think about them and I look for them, and here I was, I found them on the internet, $40. So I bought 3, I got 3 pairs of them. So I ended up spending $120 for 3 pairs of sneakers, and I probably worn them a combined 3 weeks, maybe 5 total, if you count how many times I've put these sneakers on. And when I say combined, I mean all 3 of them. I might have worn one pair one day, and then all of a sudden 3 weeks, 4 weeks would go by, maybe even 2 months, and I'd wear that another pair, and I'd do it like that. So these sneakers have literally gotten, like I said, no more than 5 weeks total of use, and none of those times were back to back. Never, not one time have I worn a pair of my British Knights 2 days in a row. And it makes it even better for somebody who says he's not a sneakerhead. I haven't worn two types of them 2 days in a row. And I'm saying that I'm not a sneakerhead, and I think that it's weird. But, well, my theory is these sneakers will last me, oh, at the rate that I'm working with them, forever. Because the boots that I'm wearing right now, actually, are the boots that I wore when I was working in the prison. And I bought these boots in 2021. And I'm still wearing them. Not essentially, literally 5 years later. Still wearing them. And now these, you have to consider they're every day. Like, every day. It's pretty much what I wear when I walk out the house. And you got to consider when I was at work, I would wear these to work, and I would wear them when I was in the gym, because my mindset was always, hey, if I'm gonna have to run in these in an emergency, I should be able to work out in these, and that's what I did, and I still do. I know I was talking about the fact that I had a weird dream with some of my former coworkers who were sneakerheads. Well, here's, like I said, it wasn't a very long dream, so I wanted to sort of set this thing up a little bit. Now, what was weird about the dream was I was in a locker room with one of the groups that I worked with, and it was one of the groups that had the most of the sneakerheads that I knew. And the craziest part about that dream is, of course, like I've been saying, I knew that it was a dream, and we were in the locker room. Now, why is that strange? Well, for one, when I worked at my jail, in the nearly 6 years that I worked there, the one thing that I never actually was able to accomplish was I never got a locker. And truthfully, I asked one time to get the locker, and I never did go get a locker. I never got one. So I never had a locker, and I would go in the locker room because that's where the bathroom was when we were going to do training inside the prison. You know, everybody has those trainings at work where you have to go to some room and sit there for a long time and just pretty much lose brain cells. That kind of training. Yeah, we would do that in our prison. And when we needed to run to the restroom, we would stay and we would just use the locker room restroom because it was right down from the area where we were in the training. So I would use that restroom, and typically that's the only time I would go in there was during training. Every so often, if I had to go and actually have a physical copy of a pay stub, I would go in that general area and I would print it out. And if I had to run to the restroom, I would then use the restroom in the locker room while I was up there. But typically, I was not in the locker room. So that's what kind of made that a little strange to me, how frequently and comfortable that I was in that locker room, because the whole time I worked in the prison, I may have probably spent, and it's a stretch, 2 hours in that locker room. In about 6 years, I spent about 2 hours, and that's maybe. But so here I am in this dream, and this group of sneakerheads is in there too, and I'm just sitting on a bench, hanging out with these guys, and I like all these guys because this is one of my favorite groups. In fact, it was one of the groups that I actually was in at one time, and they decided that they wanted to trade sneakers with each other, which they do from time to time. That group would always be looking for the newest, and usually it was always Nikes. Most of the time it was Nikes. I'm gonna say 80% of the time what they would be after would be some type of new Nike, and sometimes they would have a representative actually go and collect a whole bunch of money, and that person would try to get the different Nikes that they would go after on their day off if the other people had to work, and they'd be into it like that. And so here they are, and they're starting to trade Nikes. Now, typically when you think about trading shoes or giving somebody a shoe, you would have both pairs, and you would hand them to the people, and here you go, this is your pair of shoes. But what made this dream really weird is the fact that they were exchanging only one shoe, and it was indiscriminate. It's not like the person would get, they just said, okay, we're going to switch only left shoes. No, no. Sometimes the person would trade a left shoe for a right shoe. So it's like even the two people who exchanged shoes were giving each other the opposite shoe. So it's not like they could wear the other shoe with the shoe that they traded because it was the same foot. So example, like to really get this thing to understand just how weird it was, if one guy had a left shoe in his hand, the other guy had a right shoe in his hand, they would exchange that left and that right shoe so that now they had the other one. And even if they wanted to wear the mixed match shoes, they couldn't because the one guy now has two left shoes and the other guy now has two right shoes. So it's just like they're going to put them on a shelf and just sort of leave these shoes, and now they both have two pairs of shoes that nobody can wear, but they have one individual shoe that represents the pair. And to me, I was like, wow, this is really, really, really weird. And I was getting extraordinarily confused when I saw this, and I was just like, whew. And that's when I woke up because it just got so strange looking at these people exchanging one shoe. Now, whether or not that's what real people do, I highly doubt it. I imagine you want to keep the pair together, but that dream, that's what they were doing. They were just exchanging the one shoe. Hmm. Okay. This one was very odd and is also a very short one too. Um, well, a couple episodes ago, I did a show about convenience store day, and for some weird reason, I don't know why, but I had a dream. I was walking around 7-Eleven, and when I was walking around 7-Eleven, and Giant for some reason, strange. I'm walking in the store and it's 7-Eleven, and I'm continuing to walk around because it's weird that the 7-Eleven is so big, and it turns out that it's got a Giant on the outside of it as well, so it's like connected. Can I explain it better? I think I can. Um, Walked into 7-Eleven, and you can see the front of the store was a 7-Eleven. Walked into it. As I'm walking around inside 7-Eleven, you could just go past the area where the coffee and the Slurpees were in this 7-Eleven, and it just sort of opened up into a giant supermarket. Not like a supermarket with big things in it, but a giant. The company Giant. And it was very strange because as I'm inside this Giant now, after I passed through the 7-Eleven, there was customers around who were looking to buy things, and they were like in different boxes like everything else is in, and they would go up to the register And when they went up to the register, the cashier, which was funny, there was actually a cashier, they said, sorry, today's color is red. We can't sell anything that's not red. And people were in extreme disappointment because this one person had a couple of Pepsis, and they said, sorry, we can't sell you those. You have to go buy Coke today if you want that, because we can sell you something that's red. And the people were just like, not happy about it, but they just sort of accepted it and just said, well, okay, I can't buy anything red, so I can't buy anything other than things that are red. And so they just went and they accepted it and they started buying red stuff. Um, Ice pops or red lollipops. Um, they would buy red meat, which was kind of cool. It was funny. A lot of people walking around with beef because it was red. They couldn't buy chicken because chicken wasn't red, so they couldn't buy it. And it was just strange how, for some reason, everything in that giant, inside that 7-Eleven, could only be bought that day. It had to be red. I don't know why the color red specifically. I don't mind red. I like red. Red's a good color. But I just found it funny that it was red. But that's the way that that episode worked, essentially. It was just all about stuff that was red. And it's one of those situations that I can't say, well, I didn't make it up, but it did come out of my brain, which was kind of funny. Okay, here comes another one. Just so happens to be another convenience store thing, and this is from a dream that I actually wrote the date on this dream. Now, my mistake was the first several dreams I already talked about, the giant, the locker room, the wrestling match, and the man walking around with a track phone. Those were like really small micro dreams that popped in my head, and they were all from the same night of eating. When I ate, the day that I ate late was March 24th, 2026. So this is all happening during that time period, and that's just what it was. Now, the dream that I'm about to tell you about next happened on April 11th, 2026. I thought it was just strange, as all these dreams, and this one, I only had one dream that I could remember from that night because I had like three others and I forgot to write them down. My mistake. I didn't do what I did in March and actually just take the time to write it down. In fact, this dream came to me in the process of me writing down the dreams prior to it. I just totally just ignored it and for some reason didn't write it down until a little bit later. But here it is. I was working at Wawa and me and my coworkers were waiting for the next shift to come in. But they were astronauts. Yeah, let that sink in. Here I am at Wawa, and I was working a 3 to 11 shift, and me and my coworkers, like all of us, was three of us on that night, and we can't go until somebody comes in to replace us because Wawa doesn't close. But the problem was the next shift, the people who we were waiting for were astronauts, and we had to wait for them to come back from space. And it was weird because one person was really impatient. One of my coworkers was really, really impatient. Like, man, I don't believe this. This is the third time this month that I had to be here when the astronaut crew had to come back, and they were really not happy about it because we had to wait sometimes. That person was like, "Yeah, last time that astronaut crew was supposed to come, they didn't show up for 2 days after the landing." And I was like, "No, don't worry, they'll be here. They're on time most of the time." And the other person said, "No, he's right. Um, it was last time they were late. They were 2 days late, so we had to just stay for 2 days until the crew came in." And I was like, "And you guys were both here for that day?" "Yeah, we were both here for that day." And I was thinking to myself, well, this is the second time that I've been here for the astronaut crew. The first time, they actually landed the spacecraft just outside in the parking lot, and they were here actually 15 minutes early. So I was telling them they were early when I was here last time. So I don't assume that they're going to be late, 2 days late, no less. But I think they're going to be here at a reasonable time, so we can just relax and they'll show up. Meanwhile, customers kept coming into the store, and we just kept waiting on them as we would normally. And eventually, the one person was just like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And as a result of that, they went to go try to lock the door. Now, this is Wawa when I was in management, and I had a key to the front door and the inaccessible safe. So I had some keys regularly on my person because I don't know why they gave me a key in real life, not the dream, but I actually had a key to the front door because um, the store closed twice a year, and I was one of the people who could potentially open it, and for some or close it for that matter. But so the manager gave me and my other lower managers keys to the front door. So I told the guy, "No, we're not going to lock the door." I was like, "Yeah, we got to lock the door because if they're going to be 2 days late, I'm not going to wait on anybody," is what this person said. And I'm like, "No, you can't do that." And it's like, if you have a key, and of course the key works from the outside, not the inside. And this person was like, you can go lock the door and not let anybody in." And I told him, "No, I'm not going to do that. We're going to wait for these astronauts that are going to come in here and take over for us, and we're not going to be angry about it. Just be patient, do your job, they'll show up." Meanwhile, I looked at the clock, and it was already 15 minutes after 11, so they should have already been in the store. But the astronauts did not show up, and the other two were getting really, really anxious, thinking to themselves that, yeah, here it comes again. It's going to be another 2 days before they show up because they didn't land right out here like they were supposed to. They actually landed in Florida, so they had to get them debriefed and all other stuff, and then they're going to finally show up. And I told them, "Man, come on. I don't understand why this is happening, but usually, from my perspective, the astronaut crew would always show up at the right time." And then they started getting mad, and the one person decided, "You know what? I quit." And I was like, "Why are you gonna quit? There's no reason to quit." And that person's like, "Yeah, there is. There's definitely a reason to quit. I'm tired of waiting for the astronaut crew to come and show up and take over for us. I'm tired of it." And I was like, "Man, it's part of your job." Like, "Yeah, not anymore. I quit." Drew his name tag on the front and walked out. And it was just me and this other person here waiting for the astronaut crew, and that's when I woke up. Now, truthfully, I can honestly say that, well, sometimes when I was working at Wawa, it did kind of feel like the replacement people were coming from outer space, and we did kind of have to wait for them for a while. But in truth, that dream, it felt very, very real. And the good part about it was, like I said, I knew in myself that it was only a dream. So that's probably why mentally I could be able to say to the rest of the crew who was there, it'll be fine, because I knew eventually I'd wake up and those people were going to disappear. Oh man, how are we doing on time? Let's see. We're doing okay. I think I can do a couple more of these. I think I will. Dude, I only have a couple more left. Um, let's see. Hmm. How am I gonna tell this one? There's some parts of this that I probably don't want to elaborate too much into it again. This is one of those ones where I have to probably just sort of adjust the dream ever so slightly so that it's not so bad. Um, I guess this is the way we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it like this. Um, I was running a Wawa in this dream, as I've done many a times, small and large. Um, as I was there waiting and running the store, everything was going smoothly. But this particular store I was in was very similar to, if not the actual store that I started in, a small store. And everything was going well. And we had a moderate flow of customers. There was like 5 customers in the building at the time. And usually, when there's 5 customers in the store, it's at that time with a small store, that's a fairly decent amount of people inside the store because now you have the 5 customers and I had a cashier, somebody in the deli, and I was just doing the management stuff, walking around, helping out in both spots as needed. And it appeared in my mind that the store was in my normal 3 to 11 shift. And as I'm in that store, as would happen from time to time, corporate people would show up to the store and they would walk around and they would just look and see what's going on and talk to you and ask you how you're doing. And not that they really cared most of the time, but they would ask. Um, they would try to see if everything was clean, if things were up to date, and all that stuff was going on. And usually it's just one guy. Sometimes, very rarely is it two. Most of the time, it's just one person would just come by. But in this dream, there were two. And this is where I have to sort of soften the blow a little bit about the second guy. The first guy was your standard issue polo shirt wearing executive type person. The other guy was coming into the store and he had a tattoo on his neck of a flag. Not a harsh tattoo, but it was a tattoo of a flag. And he had a gun on his right hip. He was armed. And he also was wearing the company logo and a polo. But he was walking around with a weapon. And customers were nervous when they saw this guy coming into the store because, wait, he didn't actually have the store logo on. My fault. This guy didn't have the store logo on. Only the one guy did. The other guy didn't. He was just walking around like Joe Schmo and armed, visibly open carrying, and customers were a little nervous when they saw him. Well, the guy was an intimidating looking guy, and the corporate guy was talking to the customers, and they saw that guy walk by, and he was adamantly telling the other customers in the store the guy was safe. Don't worry. He's fine. He's part of corporate. He's an executive. And the customers were getting really nervous to the point where they were trying to leave. And the armed guy would go over to him and say, you don't have to go anywhere. Do your shopping. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Which, of course, made the people feel even more nervous. Made them feel as if they were being held hostage. And they got extraordinarily uncomfortable with the situation. And I was just sort of like, I don't know. This doesn't feel right. This really doesn't feel right. But clearly, this is a corporate situation, and when it comes to corporate situations, my hands are always tied, and there's nothing that I can do except for just go along with whatever corporate says. And that's just what I did. Just let it move on as smoothly as they wanted it to go, and I wanted no part of any interference with them, because my whole goal was to let them figure out whatever it was they wanted, and then they could just leave. And at that point, where customers were starting to get really nervous seeing this guy walking around armed, open carrying, that's when I woke up from the dream. And I was like, man, that one was rough. Because it took me a little while before it turned out in my mind where it was like a dream. And maybe like a couple minutes there, I was a little nervous for the customers, even though for some reason I knew, because never before has a corporate person had a weapon on them when I was working there. And but for some reason in the dream, I just sort of said, "Oh yeah, this is what happens," and I just sort of accepted it. Meanwhile, it's nothing that has ever happened while I was working in one of those stores. So, very strange, strange situation to have as far as dream goes. And I just sort of moved on with it and just let it go. It was weird, but it was what it was, right? Right. All right, let's go to the last one I've got here. Or am I going to hold this one for the next time and add it to the next one? Time considering. Let me see what this one is. Hmm. Hmm. I think I'm going to save this one for next time. Yeah, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to save this one for the third one because I have time and and this one could actually be, yeah, definitely. I'll save it for the third one. I think that's what I'll do. Because if I save it for the third one, it'll give me enough stories Yeah, I'm gonna save this one for the next time that I talk about stories, dreams rather, that I had after eating too late. So I'm actually gonna take this opportunity to ring the bell and end the main event. Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna ring the bell and end the main event. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look here and see if we can find a very interesting. Uh, I got the last couple wrong, so I'm gonna use this one as far as three things that have one thing in common. I think this one will be easy enough for me to get, and it'll make me look smart for a little bit. What do these three things have in common? Max Weinberg, Kevin Eubanks, Paul Schaefer. Max Weinberg, Kevin Eubanks, and Paul Schaefer. The answer these three gentlemen have in common is they are the musical leaders for late night shows. Boom. Band leaders on late night talk shows. The late the late night with Conan O'Brien, the Tonight Show, and the Late Show with Letterman. Yep, those guys were all band leaders. I needed a win. I needed an easy win, and that one was it. Just so happens that I pulled a good one for that. All right, let's go to these questions here. A little more deep. Dig a little deeper, as they say, huh? What do we got? Hmm. A couple of good ones here. Hmm. Hmm. I have a possible answer here or there. Ah, I like this one. And I think I can explain it in a very special way that most people, I want to say most people, I gotta put it, some people are 100% sure that they are, and some people are 100% sure that they're not. Other people have no idea. But I do believe that I can answer this question, and I believe that I am very much accurate. The question is, are you a good judge of character? Am I a good judge of character? Well, I'm going to say that I am. I really will. Even as a young kid, I knew that there were people that you could. Every kid can try to tell, except for sometimes when they just say, "Oh, let's just go hang out, we'll play, and we'll just be fast friends right off the bat." I was never that person. I never was. Like, for me, it takes a lot for you to crack my inner circle, for one. Like, it's a combination of somebody you have to win the lottery, you have to come with prerequisites, and then after I have a personal interview with you, which you're really not aware is happening, I then take my time and deliberate what you are like relatively quickly. And how do you do that? You say, how do you think you are a good judge of character? Because you come with prerequisites. You then win a lottery, and then you you interview them, is what I just said. Well, let's start off by saying you won the lottery. The first part about that, in order to get to me, essentially, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. So you have to be a winning participant. You got to win somehow, some way. You got to be someplace where I am, and that's going to be a place with people who I generally know. So you have to just so happen to be somebody who knows one of the people that I know, and we're in the same place. So that's sort of winning the lottery because there's 7 billion of us on this planet, and you happen to know somebody that I know, and we happen to end up in the same place at the same time. That's your lottery win, right? Next, the prerequisite and sort of resume that I'm given. Somebody will tell me, "Oh yeah, that's so and so from so and so." I'm like, "Oh, so you've known so and so from so and so for how long?" Like, "Oh, X, Y, and Z." They say that, right? Okay, cool. So now a person that I know that you know tells me that you're okay. That's two boxes checked. But now, if I was to give these percentages in how I am judging you, well, you were in the right place at the right time. That counts for like 5 out of 100. The person tells me that they know you. That counts for about 15. So now it's 20. Now comes the 80. That is the interview that you get essentially. We're talking, we talk about certain things, and it's like, hey, okay, I like this, I like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. And then I hear all that, and I'm like, okay, that's, you know how, like, if you go to a really good interview to a really good job, they don't just tell you to let me see your resume and read it over. They don't just ask you questions of how do I think that you're going to perform in this job? What is your expectations for you in this job? What are you going to do? The other thing that the people do is they watch your mannerisms and they watch how you react to things. And that's more important than the questions themselves. That's where the judging of character begins. Because I can tell you that pizza is my favorite food. And in that comment, for me telling you that pizza is my favorite food, you could look up and to the left and be like, I think pizza's good too. And I'm like, do you? Or you could simply look down after I say that. Everybody likes pizza. What's so special about this? Or I could mention somebody's name and you're like, well, and just based on these little clues, just not even what you say, but how you react based on what I've asked you or what you've said. If you talk about somebody and you bring that person up and you're excited and you're like, okay, that's somebody who I know and I really don't trust, but you like that person, all of a sudden I have to question you. Um, or I can see you say, oh, that's somebody who I know and I really respect, and you actually sort of do all the things like when you're talking, you're like, I know that person. I've gotten great information from, and they tell you the truth, and you can see that they genuinely respect that same person. Then I'm like, all right, maybe this is somebody I can talk to and deal with. They may not crack into the inner circle, but they can certainly be in the orbit. So it's somebody I'm going to be like, hey, I'll talk to if I see. And I can certainly tell you that my spidey senses go off pretty quick. It doesn't take me long to do those things because those things are so quick to find out, because you first see the person, you find out if somebody knows them that you know, and then by talking to them, sometimes it's the way they say things, sometimes it's, of course, this is one of my favorite things that people forget sometimes. Sometimes it's not always what people say or what people do. Sometimes it's what people don't say or what they don't do. And I feel pretty confident that I can read that stuff pretty well. And that was before I started working in the prison. And then after I started working in the prison, that that superpower sort of went from like 4 to like 50 out of 10. I can kind of really get a better feel of a person much quicker, because when you're in prison and you're talking about people that you have to potentially go back to back in a corner and fight with, or an inmate who is genuinely trying to change their life, or one that might shank you, you need to kind of make a quick assessment of their character really quickly. And that has certainly, like I said, it's ramped up since I've been working in the jail. And I've always thought I was a pretty good judge of character. But now I'm pretty good at quickly assessing it. And so ultimately the question was, am I a good judge of character? And my answer is, yeah, I believe that I am. I believe that I definitely am. Well, we will then go to the Spear of the Week, because we can't forget about the Spear of the Week. What would the Spear of the Week be? Well, the answer is, here in Philadelphia, over the week of, because right now it's July 19th as I'm recording this. Earlier this week, there was crazy microbursts, which are strong, real fast, thunderstorm-like weather, which flooded some areas in southwest Philadelphia, not too far away from where we used to live. And it was pretty bad. It took out a lot of trees, a lot of flash flooding. It was a mess. So if I had to make a Spear of the Week, it would have to be those crazy microburst storms, which did a lot of damage. Alright, now it's time for me to shut down the show. As always, I'm on Instagram at PhilipHenderson5102. I always like to say, join us on the Facebook group. Join us, the LIP Facebook group. There's always room for one more. And you can find me out there on this channel, which is the most important thing I need you to do. Like and subscribe to these shows here at Phil the Lip on YouTube. This is the main event of the main event. This is where we're at now. I need you to subscribe. I need you to like. Now, finally, what I've got for you is the words of wisdom. since I'm talking about sleep and these dreams that I'm having, I can tell you now that sleep is so important, people. I know that there's people out there who can function on 6 hours or less of sleep. Don't do that to yourself. My words of wisdom are get appropriate amounts of sleep. That's as simple as I can make it. Get appropriate amounts of sleep. Your whole life will be different because of it. On that note, well, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lib. Oh, right. I think I might go to sleep now myself.